Sarah Sues Santa. A Christmas Tale by PJ Leonard. Part 1. It was the smell of the turkey. Yes, that was the reason why she couldn't sleep. For some reason Sarah could never understand. Her parents always started cooking Christmas dinner a whole day before Christmas. "It's a big old bird," her dad had told her in the supermarket when she'd asked. "It takes a while to heat up." "But it don't look any bigger than a chicken," Sarah had said, peering at the lumpy packaging stacked in the shopping trolley. Dad had looked uncomfortable when she'd said that for some reason, rubbing his head and looking a little lost as he stared at the cheese section. Was it something I said? Sarah pulled her duvet tighter over her head, and she felt a cold chill shoot up her legs as the warm cover slid off her feet. She pulled in her legs and shivered, not with cold, but with excitement. Tomorrow is Christmas Day. Finally! She twisted and turned, trying every position possible to force herself to sleep, but the smell of turkey seeped through her covers and tickled her nose. At last, with a long sigh, she peeled back the duvet. Weak moonlight danced on her curtains. "I can't sleep. It's impossible." She drummed her fingers on her pillow. Then, with a flick of a switch on her bedpost, a light bulb came on. She winced. Then, as her eyes adjusted to the light, she sat up and pulled a little diary from under her pillow. Every single page was yellow and crinkly. It felt strange that she'd never have to use this diary again. She had used it every day since the last New Year, after all. Just one more read. Yes, maybe that will help me to relax. She flicked through the pages, reading her notes scrawled on every page since January 1st. Cleaned the windows, helped Mom with shopping, pulled out all the weeds in the garden, cooked when Mom and Dad were both ill. On and on the list of chores went, every page packed full of her good deeds, big and small. She stopped and smiled on May 8th, which had only one sentence, but it was written in big, blue letters. "Sold 103 cookies for charity." That had been a really good one. Yes, this year she'd been a really good girl. That had been her mission all year. Sarah would be the first to admit that last year had been very mixed. Some good stuff, sure, but there were still too many tantrums and yelling. Christmas last year had been pretty disappointing as a result. All she'd wanted was the Uber-Woman action figure. She'd got a bunch of other toys that year, and it had been a lot of fun, but still, no Uber-Woman. And that's when it had struck her, as they were sitting down for Christmas dinner and that old Christmas song played on the radio. He's making a list. He's checking it twice. He's gonna find out who's naughty or nice. She'd nearly dropped her fork. So that's why. Of course. Santa had thought Sarah hadn't been good enough to get an Uber-Woman. The thought had made Sarah so angry she nearly crushed a cracker in her own hands. But before she could shout at her parents and complain about how unfair Santa was, she stopped herself. How would that help? Santa might be building a report up for next year already. And that was the last time she'd come close to getting angry. The silly, childish Sarah was gone, and this year she'd become a proper grown-up who didn't sulk like a baby. True, there had been a couple of tricky moments here and there. Not getting her pocket money when Dad didn't get the pay he'd expected one month was tough. And then there was the time when Sarah had to go a whole month with a ripped shoe because they couldn't afford a new pair. But she'd done it. Even her parents were suspicious, wondering what on earth had come over their little Sarah this year. But she knew better than to tell. It was between her and the big man in red. And when she'd finally written up her wish list for Christmas this year, she knew she'd been so good that she deserved something special. An Uber-Woman Deluxe Edition, with 5 interchangeable costumes and glow-in-the-dark hair. Sarah had almost laughed at the look on her parents' face when they saw her list. They nearly went as white as the snow piling up against the windows. But she'd held herself back from laughing. That would have been rude. Being rude was something that naughty kids did, not nice ones. She read on. Did second best on the maths test. Cleaned all the autumn leaves off the driveway. Helped set up the Christmas tree. Sarah yawned happily as the completed chores swam by. Yes, she was sure she'd been good enough this year. She'd been as angelic as those angels in that other old Christmas song. And angels always got what they wanted. With one last look around her bedroom to check it was all neat and tidy, she flicked off the light, pulled up her duvet over her eyes, and drifted happily off to sleep. The second she awoke, Sarah nearly burst out of her bed with excitement, but then curled back under the covers with the duvet wrapped tight around her. It was a cold morning, but most importantly, Christmas morning. She could barely contain herself. All year, even in the summer, when she was sweating away in the garden and cutting herself on those thorn bushes trying to clear out the weeds, she would grit her teeth and remind herself, December 25th, December 25th. And now, here it was. Santa had been to the house in the middle of the night. He must have stood on the roof of this very house and checked the name, Sarah Pebbleton, off his nice kids list. She couldn't wait any longer. She leapt out of bed and, gasping as the cold wooden floorboards chilled her feet, she scrambled out of her pajamas and into warmer clothes. She opened her bedroom door a little and peeked out to see if her parents were awake yet. The smell of Christmas dinner wafted over her, and her stomach grumbled. It was the only sound she heard. They're not awake yet. Why don't Mom and Dad ever get up early on Christmas Day? Aren't they excited too? She paced around her room, thinking. It was tradition in her family that they all went downstairs into the living room together on Christmas morning to open the presents. It was a little annoying, but Sarah liked that tradition, and besides, it would be horrible if she stopped being good right now, wouldn't it? For all she knew, the presents could be magic, and they might change if she did something wrong. Maybe she was doing something wrong right now by waking up too early. Oh no! Sarah sat herself on the edge of the bed and took a deep breath. Don't be silly, she told herself. Santa's not that strict. Relax. She stood up and went to the window. The ledge was just wide enough for her to sit on. She rubbed the condensation away from the window pane and looked out on the street below. A thick blanket of snow lay over everything, making the normally grey tarmac look clean and bright. Even now the snow was falling, a flurry of flakes spinning and whirling past the window and piling up below. It was silent out there right now, with only a few footprints here and there. Maybe she'd go out there sometime today to build a snowman or get into a snowball fight with the other kids on the street. It all depended how much fun she'd be having with her new deluxe Uberwoman. Her bedroom door creaked open, and Mum stood there in her dressing gown. "I knew you'd be up," she said with a smile. "Ready to open your presents?" Sarah leapt from the window ledge. "Yes!" Dad opened the living room door. Inside it was dark, the Christmas tree standing in the corner like a shadow. When he flicked on the switch, though, the tree sparkled with green, red, and gold. Sarah's heart pounded at the sight of the stack of presents under the tree. "He's been! He's really been!" Mum and Dad said something, but Sarah could barely hear them. She nearly dived at the presents and began unwrapping them as slowly and politely as her shaking fingers would let her. She started small. "I want to build up to the main event." She unwrapped fun little presents at first, some selection packs of sweets and some new books. Then they got bigger. Soft toys, board games, and even a full-size Uberwoman cape that she could wear herself. Then she turned back to the tree to open her main present. But it wasn't there. Only their cat, Tinder, lay curled under the glow of the fairy lights. Sarah felt as though something cold was tightening around her chest. She turned to Mom and Dad, and in marched Dad, holding in front of him a present that was just the right size and shape. The ice in Sarah's chest dissolved as a wild fire spread through right to her toes. Dad laid the present before her, and Sarah licked her dry lips. "This is it! At last!" She pulled at the ribbon and peeled the wrapping paper black like a skin of an orange, savouring each and every moment. Finally, the red corner of the box peeked into view, and she couldn't hold on any longer. She tore away at the wrapping to look at her deluxe Uberwoman. Except it wasn't a deluxe Uberwoman. Not exactly. It was the normal one. The one she'd asked for last year. "You've got it, darling," Mum smiled. "Looks like you've been a properly good girl this year." Sarah stared at the figure through the see-through plastic, Uberwoman's face staring back. Her heart sank slowly. She wasn't quite sure how she felt, but she could feel her parents' eyes fixed on her, and she quickly pulled what she hoped was a great big grin and said, "Yeah, this is great. I'd better get all of this up to my room. I've got a lot of playing to do." Sarah couldn't escape the living room fast enough. Uberwoman box in her hand, she closed her bedroom door behind her and slid down it, throwing the action figure onto her bed as she felt hot tears well in her eyes. End of part 1.